Oh dear, poor Lola. Her mind has gone blank. I feel so sorry for her. Has that ever happened to you? Has your mind ever gone blank when you have been speaking in public? It's happened to me, and it felt like I was disappearing into a black hole of panic and humiliation. It was awful, and I didn't ever want to feel like that again. But we must all remember, if this happens to us, it's never as bad as we think it is. In fact, it's highly likely that our audience doesn't notice or doesn't really care. And I'm going to talk more about this a little later. How to minimize the chances of your mind going blank and how to recover if it does. But first, we're going to start off by discussing 3 essential phrasal verbs. Let me just explain what a phrasal verb is and why they are so difficult for non-native speakers. Because the fact is, I had never heard the term phrasal verb before I came to live in Spain, even though as a native speaker, I use 1 or 2 of them in almost every sentence I speak. So for the native English speakers that listen to this podcast, let me define what a phrasal verb is. It's a verb with a preposition attached to it. Sounds very innocent, right? Well, this little preposition completely changes the meaning of the root verb. It's easier to understand with an example. So we have the root verb get. To get. That means one thing. Get up means something completely different. So just by adding the preposition up, we've completely changed the meaning of get. And then there is get up to. So now we're adding a second preposition, and once again, this completely changes the meaning another time. Now, this is easy for native speakers who grow up absorbing all these different meanings and all these different phrasal verbs. You kind of learn through osmosis. But it's a nightmare for non-native speakers. You see, there are at least 19 phrasal verbs with the root verb get. And people studying English have to learn them all. Here they are. Get across, get along, get around, get at, get away with, get by. Get down to, get up to, get on, get off, get out. Get on with, get out of, get over, get through to, and get rid of. Native English speakers have no idea what a torture it is for non-native speakers to learn all these different definitions. So here's the thing. You should try to add 2 or 3 phrasal verbs to your vocabulary each week. Don't attempt to memorize long lists. Treat this as an ongoing process of language development. And that is what we are going to do today. We are going to examine 3 cool phrasal verbs that were used in today's text. Let's listen to the first one again.
They ended up simultaneously shaking hands and kissing in a slightly awkward manner.
To end up. This is to reach a particular destination, and it implies that your final situation is unexpected or unanticipated. You don't know where you are going to end up when you start the process. And therefore, it is a very common phrasal verb in business English. For example, we invested in this new technology and ended up losing a lot of money. We launched the product and ended up being sued by a competitor. To end up, to reach a final and unexpected destination. Okay, let's move on to our second phrasal verb, which is not so common in business English unless we are talking about the office Christmas party. Have another listen to this.
As soon as I concluded, I ran to the nearest bathroom and threw up.
To throw up is simply to vomit. And the less time we spend on this subject, the better. So let's quickly move on to the coolest phrasal verb of them all. Have another listen to this.
She smiled at them as it dawned on her that she would be the only woman working at J-Block.
To dawn on. I love that phrasal verb. But what does it mean? Well, you know what the dawn is, right? D-A-W-N. It's the rising of the sun at the end of a dark night, slowly but inevitably bringing light to the world. So if something dawns on you, it is the slow but inevitable realization of the truth. The answer is revealed to you not in a flash of inspiration, but through the gradual process of subconscious thought. Here's an example. While I was working at Goldman Sachs during the financial crisis, it dawned on me that I was going to be fired. So there you go. 3 phrasal verbs: to end up, to throw up, and to dawn on. Use them in your conversations this week. And little by little, you can build up your list of useful phrasal verbs in business situations. Okay, let's move on to a social dilemma. When you meet someone new in a business situation and they are of the opposite gender to you, do you shake their hand or do you kiss them on the cheek? This was the question that I asked in one of my LinkedIn posts, and the answers people gave were fascinating. But before I read out what people wrote, let's just listen again to what happened to JJ and Lola. Here we go.
He moved forward to kiss her on the cheek. Meanwhile, Lola was walking towards him with her hands stretched out, ready to greet him in a more formal manner.
Okay, so do you kiss or do you shake hands? And if you kiss, what are the rules of engagement? Well, when I asked my LinkedIn connections, there were 3 main conclusions. And please bear in mind that this discussion took place before COVID-19, and I think it will be relevant again after COVID-19. The first conclusion was this: it completely depends on the culture in which you are doing business. So Sinai, a director of a multinational company working in Abu Dhabi, said, "Do not try to kiss anybody, and especially women, when you're doing business in the Middle East." Meanwhile, at the other end of the spectrum, Bruno, a credit officer from Peru, said, "It is different in Latin America. Even Spanish female colleagues always talk about the Mexican visitors who kiss everybody at meetings." So there we go. We have a kissing spectrum from the Middle East at one extreme through Europe and Spain to Mexico and Latin America at the other extreme. So I think the best policy is just to be aware of the culture you are in and adapt to that culture. The second point that my connections made was the following: it is the woman who should decide whether a handshake or a kiss is appropriate, and the man should respond. So according to Luis, a managing director in the technology sector. He says, always women take the control in professional and social situations. They establish the distance with men, and the men should wait for her quick decision and follow her. Okay, the final recurring point was the following. The kiss should never actually be a kiss. So Paul, a retail brand manager, offered some very specific advice on this issue. He says the following. Business kisses should be air kisses. Cheeks side by side, but not touching. And then you make the kissing sound with no lips to skin contact. So thank you very much for that very specific advice, Paul. So what do you think? Do you agree with our 3 rules? Number 1, be aware of cultural differences. Number 2, let the woman take the lead. Number 3, even if you kiss, don't actually kiss. What do you think about those 3 conclusions? Okay, before we end, let's return to the moment that Lola's mind goes blank. Listen to this again.
There were no words, no ideas, no thoughts. There was nothing, just a blank.
Okay, here's my very simple advice to help you avoid your mind going blank in these kind of situations, because it is a very horrible experience. If you make a speech, use notes. A list of single words that remind you of the points that you want to make. It is like a safety net, and it will give you confidence. So when I give a speech at an industry event, I have 3 pieces of A4 paper with the same list of key words on them. I put one on the floor on the left-hand side of the stage, one on the floor on the right-hand side of the stage, and one in the middle. And if I ever get lost, I just look down and I am immediately reminded of what I need to say next. And the curious fact is, I rarely, if ever, get lost because having the notes gives me the confidence. It is a safety net that you don't need to use. Now, in the case of Lola Badiola, she didn't have any time to prepare notes. So what do you do if your mind goes blank in this situation? You breathe in through your nose deeply and out through your mouth. And you focus on your breath. And you just keep repeating this until you have calmed down and controlled your nerves, and the words will come to you. Believe me, they will come. Just go onto YouTube and search Barack Obama pauses. And you will see that even the mind of the greatest orator of our generation sometimes goes blank. And when the ex-president of the United States cannot immediately think of the answer to a journalist's question, he pauses for as long as it takes. He breathes slowly and deeply, and then the words eventually come to him. And on that reassuring note, we come to the end of today's session. Make sure you join us for the next podcast. You can find out if Lola is able to control her nerves and deliver her speech to her new colleagues at J Block, as we continue to entertain you to a leadership level of business English. Until then, keep practicing, and remember, breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and